Right, right. So, imagine you work an office job, and you get one of those HR emails, that boast how well your company is doing. And you're about to dismiss it like the thousands of emails of this kind that came before it, but you notice something a bit different right there at the bottom. It says, from tomorrow, robots are going to join your team. So it happened. The robots have come. They have come for you. But you're not so sure. You see, it says there, you will be given a robot, not that you will be replaced by one. So you come in the next day, dressed as the robot. You sit down and you start doing your job as usual, but you notice something. You notice you work just that little bit faster. You notice that you learn that little bit better. And you notice that you tend to remember that little bit more. And during the lunch, you even try to tinker with this robot a little bit because it would fist bump you, but it will not look at you at the same time. So later that day, you go on to the team meeting and robots have joined your team. And you know what? Your project manager seems to complain a little bit less about your performance. And with you, between the human part and the robot part, you're taking turns talking, and finally, even the most introverted in your team can say what they think, and they suggest quite a brilliant idea. And so you realize that your team has been grinding gears for years, and finally, somebody put some oil and grease into that. You come back home from such a productive day at work and you think, gosh, if only my personal life ran as smoothly as my work life now does. And it's all thanks to those robots. So now you want one, but you're not sure which one you want. So you look around, you ask your friends, and I'm going to ask you, have any one of you ever seen any demonstration of a lifelike robot, like Will Smith trying to date Sophia Robot or something like that? Let's see. A few hands. Good stuff. So here is an example of another lifelike robot. It's real. What you have to realize about this is that these are prototypes. Now that means that your cat, your dog, or your child can break them in seconds. They cost thousands, if not millions, to produce. And there are very, very few of them out there, so you're not getting one. This one on the picture, there's only one of them, and there are millions of you. Now, what can you buy? Suppose, even for a budget of £1,000 or dollars or euros, what you can actually buy would do less than a £100 phone can do. And besides, you may even own the most advanced companion gadget that exists out there on the market right now. So let's see if you do. Put your hand up if you have an Amazon Echo or a Google Home in your home. Ooh, 3 times as many hands. That's good. But even with this most advanced tech, it doesn't have any hands or legs or anything, so it can be hardly called a robot. And your phone can still do everything it can do. And your phone doesn't tell you, I didn't understand the question I heard every 10 seconds. So you're out of options, and you're sad. And reasonably so. We have been trying to develop companion robots for almost 50 years now. And there's almost nothing on the market to show for it. But there's one exception, just one exception. You see, there is this futuristic land of Japan out there, where humans and robots live together happily, laughing all the while at the Hollywoods, the Matrix, and the Terminator. And I have spent the past 3 years testing and studying and being fascinated by these human-robot relationships. So now I will walk you through a real story that happened between a person, let's call him Haru, and his companion robot, Pepper. Now, Haru, back in 2014, lived in Tokyo. He was a young journalist, and the most advanced thing he had at the time was a city on an iPhone. So one day he noticed there's a robotics exhibition in Tokyo. And he doesn't feel either way about robots, but it would make for a good article. So he attends. Now they show many different kind of robots during the exhibition. And it turns out he could win Pepper. All he had to do was to fill in his full name and address, and they would put it in a raffle, and maybe he would win. So he had a couple of minutes, so he did that, just on a whim. And so a few weeks later, a letter arrives, and he opens it up. And it turned out that out of 1,000 people, he won Pepper. Now think about how he would feel. You know, you arrive at your home, there is a letter which says, we will give you the most advanced thing out there for your personal use, for free, no things attached, do what you want with it, right? So Haru was fascinated and anxious and excited all at the same time. So a few weeks after that, a big box arrives, he opens it up, there is the robot, he takes a picture with it, something like that, and now it's time to actually do something with the robot. So what was he going to do? Now, you read the manual and you can actually program this robot to do anything you want. But you know how manuals are. They're so dry, you would have better luck learning anything in almost anywhere else but actually reading the damn thing. So Haru goes on the internet, he looks up for other people who have Pepper, and it turns out that there's actually a thriving community out there who shares programs for the Pepper. So Haru could download something on the internet, put it into his robot, and the robot would do whatever the program tells him to do. So a journalist by day and a robot tinkerer by night, Haru started noticing other Pepper robots popping up. The Pepper is now in the places where Haru would shop. There are advertisements on TV and even some talk shows. So Haru thinks, you know what, people seem to be kind of interested in this, and I've been tinkering with this robot for a while. I'm going to write a blog post about it. And so he did. Now, a few months after that, another journalist calls Haru and he asks for an interview about Haru's life with Pepper. What is it like? And by that time, Haru knows Pepper pretty well. And Pepper even has been somewhat useful in his home. As Haru answered the phone, Pepper held his tea. And later that day, Haru would invite his friend from Hokkaido, another island hundreds of miles away. He would invite him to walk through Tokyo. But instead of physically being there, his friend would connect to Pepper and look at the Tokyo through the eyes of the robot, touch things with its hands, and chat to Haru naturally, as though they were actually physically both walking through the city. And after that faithful blog post, and after that first interview, Haru got invited to more interviews, and more exhibitions, and more talk shows, and he realized that Pepper changed his life. And after a long day at the exhibition, you know how they are, you just stand there all day. He would come back home, he would put his coat off, he would put a leather jacket off of Pepper, which he custom made, and he would turn Pepper off and store it between an armchair and the sofa. Now, why is that? Well, you see, next time there is an earthquake in Japan, and those happen pretty regularly, Haru doesn't want Pepper to fall and hurt itself. And sometime after that, Haru's parents would visit. They were visiting then because they couldn't be there for Haru's birthday, so they kind of visited in advance. And as Haru chats with his dad in the kitchen, his mom takes a few minutes to talk to Pepper. And Haru is really surprised. You see, his parents doesn't own Pepper. They're not interested in these robots in general, so why would she take time to talk to Pepper? But when Haru's birthday arrives, Pepper would roll out. It would say, "Happy birthday, Haru." And then it would say, "Your mom left you a message to be played on the date of your birthday? Would you like to listen to it now? You see, you learn to love Pepper, and Pepper in turn learns to love you. It's a little bit like having a dog without it feeling lonely every time you leave for work. And much like a dog, you can train Pepper to do some useful stuff, like carrying things around, and some fun stuff, like participating in a ritual or a festival. So, what does that have to do with us? Well, you see, these robots are not everywhere today, even though they're so fantastic, one would say, because they're just starting out outside Japan. And you can find them in the universities across the US, Europe, and Asia, but you have to look for them. And if you do live in Glasgow, you're actually in luck. I have checked with the Glasgow Uni a couple of days ago, and they do actually have one. So you can call them up and ask for a live demo. And I would recommend that. Because even though I have spent 3 years learning everything there is to learn about this robot, when I first met it physically, I was still fascinated. But what can you people do? What can you do to bring this kind of companion robots into your lives? Well, turns out as consumers, you can do a lot. You see, the things you buy today have serious implications on what the designers and the businesses and even artificial intelligences think you will buy tomorrow. So keep an eye out for the robots on the market. If you find one that you like, buy the robot and chat to the developer. Tell them exactly what you like about it and what you don't like about it. First of all, they will feel appreciated. You know, have you had many people come to you and say, you know what, I really like what you do, fantastic job? That doesn't happen all that often. And secondly, because you tell them your needs, they will develop the kind of robots that you want, not the kind of robots some designer thinks you want. So, ladies and gentlemen, do not wait for the future to come. With your interests and your wallets and your poking, you can make the future come to you. Thank you very much.